everyone is impressed when they come in and they see that, we don't just have like fun things up everywhere. It's like we're literally looking at the data. And then I have also a strange tendency of walking in the mornings, and I kind of stand in the middle of the room and like wait for them to flip through each carousel. And then I start asking questions. Why does this look this way? Or why is this number red? Or, those sorts of things. So it really just is that little reminder of, what gets measured gets done. And it's that you're watching those things on a constant basis. You're required to pay attention to them. So that's very good.
All right, Andy, welcome to the Agency Spotlight series. First of all, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm good. Just cranking away here in Cambridge. And what we usually have everyone start with is just a couple things about the basics of their agency, like number of employees, clients you service, and then like what services you usually offer. So could you just tell us a little bit more about Big C?
Sure. So Big C is an agency. We are based in St. Petersburg, Florida. We also have an office in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We have 24 full-time employees. We just hired 2 interns as well, so that's a first for us. We had never had an internship program, so we've got some young ones running around. We do traditional inbound and outbound. So we started as a web design development shop, started offering HubSpot services and marketing services to our clients probably 5 years ago now. Our traditional retainers, our revenue model is basically about 80% retainer-based marketing and 20% project-based still. We do a mix of inbound and outbound.
And what was life like for you guys before Databox?
That's a fun question. So reporting and data is something that's always been very important to me. And it's a hard thing. Clients also want to see it, but they don't want you to spend time on it. And so we've struggled with these things. We used to have these very lengthy Google Docs that were, the monthly reports were between 6 and 8 pages. And then our quarterly reports were, 12 to 15 pages. And they were screenshots of Google Analytics. There were screenshots of HubSpot. There were screenshots of SEMrush. There were screenshots of, the disparate and various tools that we were using to do marketing for our clients. We'd use our marketing coordinator's time to spend hours doing those screenshots. And sometimes we'd make them mix the data into tables so that we could show our clients, year over year, even though they'd switched platforms or all these different things. And so it became, our reporting was taking, 3 to 5 hours each month to put together, which is just a ridiculous amount for just putting a report together. So, it's hard to really sell the value of that when you're talking about those hours translating to dollars, because that's how we sell our time. So.
And you said earlier that clients don't like to pay for reporting. Is that right?
Well, they don't want to spend, if we're spending 3 to 5 hours, we have some clients that have, for instance, so one of the verticals that we do a lot of work around is attractions and museums. And so we work with family entertainment centers, for instance. We have a few different chains of family entertainment centers all over the country. One of them has 12 locations. And so we have to put reporting together for each individual location as well as the client as a whole. That report could take us 5 to 7 hours. And when you translate that to an hourly rate, that level of reporting, just the value is not there. Like, I'm not going to go into this client and say it's going to cost you $1,000 to get a monthly report. That's useful to us to make good decisions, and that you want to see as well. And so, it's a hard sell. They would rather we spend that 5 to 7 hours, obviously, doing marketing, which is what they're paying us to do. So, but we need the numbers, right? We have to have the numbers to make decisions. So,
right. I was going to ask if you don't have those reporting hours, how would you, stay on top of the numbers and share that with them? It sounds like there wouldn't be a great option.
It was a catch-22, and we really, 5 years ago when we were young, we had a hard time rolling those things in. And then it almost got to the point where, because I think I was pushing the team a little harder to pull more numbers and to run better analysis, which I think is important, but they were getting so much pushback but we don't have enough time in the retainer to do these things. And so where are we going to find, ways to cut corners, or what can we leave out here? And so I think, it got to the point where the team sort of started just like, all right, let's just keep plugging the same numbers in every month. And I'm like, yeah, but we're running different campaigns and we're working on different goals and we need to run new numbers. And they're like, So Databox has been a huge savior for that stuff. Huge. I mean, I can't even begin to explain how much time it has saved us on a monthly basis.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that. Like, can you tell me how life's changed since you adopted Databox?
Yeah, so Databox for us, when we can pull in our 5 or 6 or 8 different data sources into our reports, we have, like I said, the one client, some of our clients that have the multiple locations, they all have different Facebook pages as well. And so just having one platform where we can have one dashboard that's for each location has been it's mind-blowingly amazing, and we don't have to update it. We just set for our monthly report dashboards, we set the time period to last month. So on the first of each month, all that data is automatically refreshed for us and ready to go, and we just send the client the link. We update. Sometimes we'll update stuff with specific campaign data, obviously, and then we also go in and write a little analysis in a text box where anything is explaining why a numbers looks the way it does, or letting a client know, hey, we're going to be paying attention to this. We want to pivot here. We want to change this or try this. So we'll put these little notes and analysis into the dashboard so the client can see them. But it went from 5 to 7 hours or 3 to 5 hours to 1 hour or 2 hours, and some of them we've got down to about 30 minutes of just setting up and things like that. So it's been awesome.
That's awesome. And you said earlier that sometimes you would switch your metrics from month to month, and that would be painful for the account managers. Do you still switch your metrics month to month and use Databox for that, or are you doing consistent ones?
No, we do switch our data from month to month because we are because of that specific industry. Now we work in 3 different verticals for the most part, but in that specific industry, everything is very seasonal, and so we know that our clients who are in Florida, for instance, September and October are their slowest months. But some of our clients that are in northern climates, their slowest months are the summer months because everyone's outside, not being inside a family entertainment center, or not being inside an attraction. So. That's how those things go. And so we have to switch those things every month based on which campaigns we're tracking and whether or not, sometimes we'll do really heavy SEO campaigns throughout the summer so we can grow rankings during the off season and, yada, yada. So we do switch those things pretty frequently. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's a new story, but it makes a ton of sense after you explain it. So do clients, do they know that you're going to be using Databox and reporting on data in like a specific manner when you start with them? Like, how do you set expectations around what that's going to look like when you work with them?
That's a good question. Not really. We do talk about the dashboards that we send or that we look at, and we talk about a lot of them come into our office. We always have them fly in from wherever they are so they can be in our office for a big kickoff meeting and we can all meet together. We have dashboards set up for each. We have cross-functional teams, and so we have their dashboards with their clients set up at the end of their work base, so they all kind of sit at one long train of desks, 6 or 8 people together. And then at the end, they have a TV screen that has a carousel with the KPIs that we're tracking for each client that they're working on. So everyone is impressed when they come in and they see that, we don't just have like fun things up everywhere. It's like we're literally looking at the data. And then I have also a strange tendency of walking in the mornings, and I kind of stand in the middle of the room and like wait for them to flip through each carousel. And then I start asking questions. Why does this look this way? Or why is this number red? Or, those sorts of things. So it really just is that little reminder of, what gets measured gets done. And it's that you're watching those things on a constant basis. You're required to pay attention to them. So that's very good.
That's awesome. How do you communicate the rationale behind tracking these metrics? Like, are you telling the story that you're improving year over year? Are you pushing towards some annual goal that you've agreed upon with the client? Where are the metrics leading towards when you talk with them?
That's a good question. So we go through a pretty intense goal setting process with our clients. A lot of times they come in and they're just like, we want to make more money. And we're like, well, what does that mean? How does that look? How does that translate into the work that we're doing? And for all of our clients in different verticals, the way that they quote unquote make more money is very different. And so we have to track all kinds of different metrics tied to those things. So our strategists actually sit them down and talk about the why, which are the big, hairy, audacious goals. I hate that term, but the big things. What are they trying to do with their business? Where are they trying to go? And not just specific sales and revenue numbers, but what are we launching new products? Are we launching, we remodeling one of your centers? Are we, what's going on here? And then we talk about so those are the why things behind them. And we set goals that are, based around brand awareness. We call it awareness, affinity, and action. And so we set goals under each three of those categories. We want to grow brand awareness. What does that look like? Brand awareness are usually goals like, search volume is actually a goal, but we can do demand generation. We look at search stuff. We look at even email open rates if we're doing cold emailing, that sort of thing. We're looking at, fans and followers. Then we start looking at affinity, which is obviously engagement, page, time on the site, yada, yada, those sorts of things. And then action is obviously conversions. And we're tracking all kinds of different conversions at different, lead funnels. So awareness has to happen before affinity can happen. Affinity has to happen before action can happen, and all those things tie back into what are we trying to? What's the big picture here? What are we really trying to do?
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, how do you measure your progress towards that big goal? Like, is that a monthly cadence? Is that a weekly cadence? How do you guys make sure that you're going to hit the goals that you set out for with the client?
That's a good question. We do track year over year. So our lead screens of the dashboards we build in Databox are usually year over year types of data. And then we are tracking on if we have a revenue goal or something we're trying to hit. That's also on the cover screen of our reports that we send. So we get the revenue numbers from the client. We don't share the report with them until we have the revenue report back from them if they're not using HubSpot Sales, which most of our clients can't because of the type of thing that they're selling. So we can't get the revenue data except from them. So we are tracking year over year. We also plan all of our work quarterly. So we're giving them quarterly reports that go with so they get monthly reports, and then they get quarterly reports that track over the 3-month period. And we compare it to last year's Q3 versus this year's Q3 because we can't, again, in that particular industry, in the attractions and family entertainment centers, you can't compare Q3 to Q2 because that's not how their industry works. It's seasonal, and so we have to track Q3 against Q3 of last year, that sort of thing. So Databox helps immensely with doing that sort of thing. We'd have to do that stuff manually otherwise, and always did, always used to.
Yeah, and when I know you said it in the dashboards, you're using text blocks, and then you have this monthly report idea. How do you present that to clients? Is that like a Zoom call? How do you have someone recorded that's talking over it? How do they learn about that data?
Yeah, so we send them an email that has a link to the report, and that usually goes with, so the monthly report is an email with a link, and then we schedule a phone call to review it with them. And so we talk about what's important. Some of our clients are like, oh, we look at this all the time because they've got the link to it, right? So they're paying attention to it. And some of our clients sometimes just don't care. They want to know more about the tactics and how we're going to support these campaigns they're running or events that they have coming up and that sort of thing. So some people care, some people don't. They are all tracking the stuff that they need to be tracking. So they're looking at their revenue side and those sorts of things. And that's what they usually have to report up the chain as well. So we just try to figure out how we can tie our behaviors to what they're doing. So we're saying to them, okay, this PPC campaign, we brought your cost per conversion down. So you paid, $4 for every birthday party that was booked at your family entertainment center versus 14, which is what it was, 2 quarters ago or whatever that was. So. They care about those sorts of things. So, but it's usually a phone call with them or a join.me where we go through the report itself. And then quarterly, same thing. They actually get a longer Google Doc. So they have a link to their Databox report, and then they have a longer Google Doc, which actually has their sort of tactical plan and what we're going to do and why. And we have a little bit more of a narrative inside there that talks about the storytelling that we're working on or the campaigns that we're planning.
Internally within your agency, do you know what your account managers are doing over the course of the month? Is there like one client services director that's working with all of them, or are they all in charge independently of staying on top of their client data? Like, what are they doing within the month, as far as you know, to stay on top of this?
So for the most part, we have an analyst on each team who's actually in charge of the data itself. So the account manager and the strategists work together to pay attention. They're the ones dealing with the client on a weekly basis and having the weekly check-in phone calls and doing the emailing back and forth. So we send a weekly report every Monday that has kind of here's what we did last week, here's what we're doing next week. And here's what we're waiting on from you, which is always the longest part of that email. Like, we need approval on these 10 things and we need, all these things to come in. So those things happen. And if there's a check-in call, which some of our clients, we actually have clients who come into the office every single week, standing meetings. We have some clients who jump on a phone call, standing meeting every single week. depending on what they're comfortable with. And we'll review, well, we just saw your ranking starting to fall for this, so we're going to change pivot the content we were going to put out for next week or whatever those things are. Most of that comes from our analysts looking at it, but it also just comes from having that stuff on a dashboard directly in front of us while we're, working on a daily basis. So.
How do they react to that level of communication? Is that surprising to them that someone would stay on top of that, or is it just expected? Like, what are their expectations around that communication?
Most of them don't have time to deal with it, which is frustrating because we need their input and we need them. So we do as good a job as we could do in the discovery process, talking about how important it is that they have somebody dedicated to working with us on their side, that we need these weekly check-ins. We need this time with them. We just, especially when a point of contact at a client changes, we just went through this with one of our largest clients. They were like, we had gotten to this point where we were so comfortable working together that they had stopped doing their monthly meetings with us. We had, quarterly check-ins, and we'd talk every now and then, and they'd be happy with just getting their little weekly, email report, and they were fine with that. And now we have this new point of contact, and she's, we're restructuring the contracts, and she's like, why aren't we meeting every month? This is crazy. We have all this data. I don't feel like we're getting good analysis from this. And I'm thinking, you were, and then we realized, the other point of contact didn't need it or want it, and so we're happy to change up what we're doing. So it's totally a client by client basis, like what they are hungry for and interested in, and some of them just aren't. They pay us to be their agency, and then they kind of expect us to do the work and be on top of that stuff. So it's a totally across the board.
Yeah, got it. And last question for you here. I know you said you set expectations for people around specific goals during the sales process. Do you talk about like how you're going to hit that, or you like set quarterly goals? How do you tell the entire story in the sales process of how you're going to get to that? That's
a great question. We actually, because we're doing quarterly planning right now for Q4, we just finalized Q4 based on, all the data coming out of Q3. We put all these reports together. That's what we've been working on a lot this week. So I just had a Q4 come to me. I call them a Q4, but it's our Q4 strategies from one of our account managers. So came to me yesterday for review because I review all of them before they go out to our clients. And I noticed that one of the numeric goals, one of the SMART goals that they had set in the campaign had an increase in conversion rate. And so they had the conversion rate listed for every quarter for the past 6 quarters. And then it was like, next quarter, it's going to be this much higher. And then I started looking through the entire strategy, and I didn't see any tactics tied to conversion rate optimization. And so my question back was, I see this goal is set, but I don't see any tactics regarding CRO at all. I see, all these other things. And so the response, which I thought was fantastic, was, well, here's what we're doing. We're not actually changing. We're not doing on-page conversion rate optimization. We're changing the messaging. We're adding video strategy. We're adding, and she had a really good response that these are all things that are going to contribute to us converting more because we're doing better targeting, because we're doing, all these different things. So I was sold on that. I just wanted to know that if we're going to actually set a goal, there's going to be tactics tied to achieving that goal in every way. So yeah, absolutely. We dig through, we have a whole page in our quarterly strategies that's like, here's the numeric goals that we're tying to the narrative-based goals that we've talked about. And these numeric-based goals, these numbers that we are going to be paying attention to, here are the 15 things. And we actually, when we write what we're going to do, we'll write like blogging, and then we'll write the goal that it's tied to. Why are we blogging? Because we're working on this goal, and this goal are going to be affected by the blogging that we're doing this month or next month or whatever it is. So.
Yeah. So, and then you guys set like one quarter at a time, it sounds like. So you have a couple hypotheses, you set a quarter, and then there's a big quarterly meeting like this. When you adjust things and adjust where you think you're going to get the numbers from. Yeah,
we make our biggest adjustments on a quarter by quarter basis. But, for some of these clients that are seasonal, we've got their accounts like really down pat. And especially with HubSpot, so much automation can happen that every year we're just kind of building on the campaigns we know already are working. And so they get really juicy. It's really fun because we've got so much like legacy campaign that's just out there running on our behalf that we can really like crank things up and grow, month over month, quarter over quarter, without having to, increase budget, without having to increase their paid spend. These things are just happening because we've got all these side bits moving in the background. So.
Yeah, you've become an expert in their business, and it's all been documented. So
Yeah.
you always remember like how you're going to build off the thing from last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That's awesome. Well, Andy, I really appreciate your time here, and glad to hear that Databox has been solving those annoying reporting problems.
Yes, we love it. We're super happy.
All right, have a good one.
All right, thank you.